Everybody Wants Some is the most incongruous film to probably do after Boyhood, a big raunchy college comedy, because people, oh, Boyhood, what's next? I'm like, a raunchy college comedy about a bunch of horny guys. But strangely, it's sort of a continuation in some, it's a different part of me. It's like that was Eller's the sensitive, kind of thoughtful artist guy, but this is kind of who I really, I was closer to Jake.
Right,
the carousing, overconfident, athlete dude. I was a little bit of both.
Well, to me, both those films prove the magic of cinema, like how it works on us. And when it's done well,
it's powerful.
You can add significance to things like a dead bird.
Yeah.
And it's that old thing of like, the more specific you make something, the more general it becomes. And I think The Boyhood sort of proves that film has that power like no other artistic medium.
I learned that early on, and I think it was Tarkovsky's book, Sculpting in Time, which is one of the best books about cinema by the great Russian cinematic poet, Andrei Tarkovsky. But he talked about that in his own films. He made a film called The Mirror that he thought it was his most autobiographical film. But you see the film and it's pretty opaque. You have there's a woman and a man meet. They're sitting on a fence. He walks across a field. It's just beautiful poetry. And there's no real narrative. You're very moved by it, but you can't even begin to say why. And he said, well, that's the story of his parents' meeting. Everything had a very specific, oh, that was him, a stutter. Oh, everything was directly connected to his life. And you wouldn't know it watching it, but you do sense something. And he said the power, he's seen it over and over, that if you do something that means a lot to you, that the power of cinema will translate, that feeling you're investing in, even if you're just filming this coffee cup, but this coffee cup means a lot to me because, that will, through the power of cinema alone, can have that potential to communicate something on some other level. So I take something in Boyhood, like, a kid staring at a decomposing bird. I did that, I remember it, but will that mean anything to anybody else? And I don't have to think too much about that. I go, it will.
You just know.
Yeah, I don't go, that'll be boring, we gotta keep it moving and bring in a bunch of plot points or it'll be boring. I go, no, I think the audience who will sit down, I trust that a kid staring at, that's just one of many examples. I think that'll resonate because everybody remembers a kid trying to figure out how the world works.
Well, it's life and death.
Things die, and is this thing feeling anymore? Just that early sense of more, will I be decomposing someday? You just have to have faith that the best audience will do that. And you got to pitch to the best, people who are feeling and thinking. I have an audience very small in my mind. Everything I do practically is like, I think when Ethan and Julian and I are working together, we're kind of like, oh, but if we hint that you've cheated on it, everyone will hate you. And that's when we go, not our audience. Our audience will appreciate the brutal honesty of a real long-term relationship that maybe there's been some rough patches.
Right.
Other people are like, oh no, if you do that, the audience will dislike him and you don't have a movie and we can't market it. It's like, yeah, you're right. But this mythical audience we have that we think we know it's small, but it's deep. And we have a bond with them that we're not gonna lie to them. And that's just something we feel. Studio execs get paid a lot of money to make these pronouncements, but it's just not, it's not true. I never believed it when they say, oh, if this happens, you lose the audience. It's like, well, where do you gain the audience, if you make a schematic that everything has been tested in the boardroom and, if his dog died and then we'll like him, what are the stakes? Everything's about stakes in the screenplay. The stakes are, if he doesn't get that, then he'll not achieve this and, here come all the plot points. I'm like, what are the stakes? It's like you're alive, You're just trying to make it to the world, and here's what you're trying. Like the stakes can be low, and yet kind of resonate, hopefully. But overall, I've been allergic to these. If you do this, the audience thinks that. It's like
the manipulation of it.
Yeah, I want an audience that knows they're being manipulated and goes, that's stupid.
Well, what I hear you saying is you're making movies for yourself, which I wish more filmmakers would do.
Don't tell them that.